Hello, welcome to Wednesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now today we're going to take a look at a puzzle that we should have covered probably years ago on the channel. This is a very standard, what's become a very standard logic problem called a Tapa. And Tapa was invented by Serkan Urakli, the brilliant puzzle constructor, probably I don't know, certainly over 10 years ago. It's become an absolute staple of the World Puzzle Championship and the Puzzle Grand Prix that go on each month around the world, and for good reason. It's a very elegant puzzle, and for the life of me, I'm not sure why we've not covered it yet. So we're going to put that right today. I've had these requested a lot, but this one came with an amusing story, so I decided we'll try this puzzle. Which is by a Japanese puzzle constructor called Hiro. Now, the reason I thought we might have a go at it is that Oliver sent this in, and Oliver said that he found it in a book, and in a puzzle book, and he couldn't do it. And what was annoying was that there was a walkthrough in the book of how to do it, but the walkthrough was in Japanese, so he still couldn't do it. So he's asked if we can remedy that, which I hope we'll be able to do. I have done a lot of Tapa over the years, so you know, I'm hopeful this puzzle won't prove to be monstrous. Now, if you're familiar with the rules of Tapa, by all means just plough straight into the puzzle, click on the link under the video. That'll take you to the web page you're seeing here, and you can have a go. If you're not familiar, it's very important to study these rules carefully because they are complicated. So here we go. I've borrowed these rules from gmpuzzles.com. It's a wonderful puzzle site for puzzles and a wonderful puzzle site for the rules of puzzles. So you can see here the rules of Tapa. Let's read them together. Shade some empty cells black to create a single connected wall. So that's the first important condition. You can see all of the black squares in the answer here are connected. They form a single line, and that is very important. A single orthogonal line as well. It doesn't count, so you know, if this square here where the cursor is, if that was on its own a black square, that is not considered to be connected to this square. Next bit, numbers in a cell indicate the length of consecutive shaded blocks in the neighbouring cells. So if we take a look at this 4 here, you can see that there are 8 empty squares around this number 4, and that means that 4 of these squares need to be orthogonally connected, exactly 4 of them, and with no gap. Okay? If there is more than one number in a cell, then there must be at least one white unshaded cell between the black cell groups. So if we look up here, you can see there are 2 2s in this cell, and in the answer that means there's these 2 cells which are both black, and then a gap, a white cell, and then obviously 2 more connected cells. Now the gap can be any number of white squares, but there must be a gap. So that's the thing that we have to remember when there's more than one number in a cell. And then finally, cells with numbers cannot be shaded, okay, and the shaded cells cannot form a 2 by 2 square anywhere in the grid. Now that's a very standard condition of a lot of logic problems that you see from Japan, especially things like Nurikabe. That's a rule there as well. So if we look at this, let's say you were developing this solution and you were unsure about this square where the cursor is, then you would know, because of the 2 by 2 rule, this could not be a black square, because that would create a 2 by 2 black area, and that is not allowed. Right, so with that, let's go back to the puzzle and see how to solve it. Right. So the first place my eyes are drawn is this 3. And the reason is that this 3, it's not in the centre of the grid, so there are only 5 cells we need to worry about here. So I need 3 of these 5 cells to be orthogonally connected. Now that means that this central square here must be black. It's not possible otherwise to create 3 squares in a row. And this 2 is also, in fact that 2 is determinable, because there are 5 squares around this cell here, and we know there must be one white square at least between the two cell blocks, if you like. So you can see that that means that That is the only permissible arrangement for this square here. Now this square can't be black, because if this square is black, this 3 condition would mean that we need to connect these up like that. And look, that gives us a 2 by 2 problem. So we can't do that. This square is not black, and therefore this square must be black. Right, what next? Sometimes with Tapa you have to consider how black areas can connect to each other. How are we going to build this shape up so everything can connect to its friends. And your eyes might be drawn to these 3s, but I'm not sure we can do anything with the 3s, and the reason for that is that there's so much latitude. There are 7 squares around this 3 here. If we know 3 of them are connected, we can't actually say anything about how that moves. But this square is, well, it's a little bit forced, this 1, 2, 2 arrangement, because if we add 1, 2 and 2 together, we get 5. I mean, you don't have to be an expert cracking the cryptic to know that. But obviously these black-celled areas must be differentiated from each other with at least 1 square. So we actually know that there is no latitude here in terms of how many white squares there are. There must be exactly 3 white squares to differentiate the area. There can't be 4, because if there were 4 white squares, 4 plus 5 is equal to 9, and there are only 8 squares around this cell. So what does that tell us? Okay, right, well, one thing it tells us is that we can use this square and this square in conjunction with this square, I think. Because, yeah, okay. So let's look at these 2 squares and ask ourselves, can we tell anything about these 2 squares? Now, it's not possible that both of these squares are black squares, because that will give us a problem in this square. And it's not possible that both of these squares are white squares, because that's going to give us a problem here, where we know that we must have exactly 3 white squares, and they must, differentiate between, the black areas. So we can't have 2 connected white squares around this block here. So actually, we know that there is exactly 1 black square and exactly 1 white square in these 2 squares. Let's highlight that. That's going to mean that there's exactly 1 black and exactly 1 white square. And we can say exactly the same thing there for exactly the same reason. So there is 1 black square and 1 white square in this area. And now let's look at these 3 squares at the top. Now, it's not possible all these 3 squares are black, because that would require this cell here to contain the number 3. So we know the other white square that's around this cell is one of those 3 squares. So there's 1 white square here, 1 white square here, 1 white square here. That's 3 white squares. So this square is a black square. Right, okay, now how does this black square connect to this black square, for example? How is this square going to get out? It can't get out this way or this way, because as it comes across here, obviously it would hit a dead end. This is a 1 here, this is a 1 here, so it just gets trapped. So it must come down. Now it hits the 3, so now neither of these squares can be black anymore, because this is either going to be like that, or like that, or like that, but it can never get down here, because then it would have to be 5 squares large. And in fact, this can't do that either. Although that meets the 3 condition, this is now trapped. This is a dead end because it can't come this way and it can't come down and it can't. But all of those yellow squares are now not permitted, so you can see we sort of have a Tetris shape in the grid that is isolated from everything else. So that is not possible. So this either comes out that way or it comes out that way. And should probably be able to instantly tell you which way is the correct way, but let me just look at this for a sec. So if it does come to the right here, you can see all of that would be forced because of these two threes. Oh goodness me, that is quite complicated. Yeah, okay. So let's look at that. Let's look at that. That would give us this type of arrangement, with that being also not allowed, because obviously this one has to be not connected. So how does this 3 now, all of this is also not in. So this 3 needs to somehow get out. And you may say, well it can get out, look, it could get out here. And the critical thing to note here is that this area at the top cannot get out this way. It's not possible because it would require 3 here for it to come across the top. So this area has to come out at the down here somehow. Now how can it do that? So obviously that would have to be black. But now look, it's so clever. That is so beautiful. And I'm not sure if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, but bearing in mind that this black area here has to get out somehow by connecting to this black area, it no longer can, because this would breach the 2x2 condition. Isn't that clever? Obviously, if you try and make that a black square, that's never going to work, because then simply that square is also going to breach the 2x2 condition. So this all gets isolated, and therefore, oopsie, we can actually say that this must come this way. And that means these two squares are not in. This square must be in now because we've managed to sort of remove from consideration all of those 3 squares. Now we're going to be able to do some tidying up now. So this square and this square are both out. That square must be a black square because we knew one of them exactly was black. And now all of these squares must be green. This square needs to get out, so it's going to have to come up, and now it can't come this way, because that if it does come this way, that would mean this cell had to contain a 3. So this has to do this, believe it or not. And then we get a little choice here, but you can see this 2 means that that square is green, so that has to come out all the way there, and now it's going to have to come down. Oh, and it's beautiful. Now, in fact, this is all going to be forced now. Look at how this is going to have to work. It's going to have to come down here and turn left, because otherwise it breaches this condition. Now it's going to have to come further down, otherwise it's going to make a 2 here. Now it can't make a 2x2, so it's got to come down, out, down, out, 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 out. All of that is forced. That is quite lovely. And then we can put in a whole load of green squares, which is satisfying, so I'm going to do it. That must be green as well, because we've got our 3 connected squares around this one. So now this must continue on its merry way. And now as this square cannot be part of the 3, that square must be part of the 3. 2, we know one of these is in exactly. Do we know which one yet? I'm not sure that we do, so we'll come back to that. And Just trying to see how this is going to develop. This 1 here means these 2 squares are not in. So now this is the only possibility for the 1 in this square. This must be black. That means this must be black, so we need to connect the black squares up. That gives us our 3 squares around this 3. So that is not in. That is in. We've still got to put 2 more around here. And we've somehow got to connect these squares downwards. So this square is black, and so is this one. And that means these squares are green. This square must be black. It's just absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful, isn't it? Now, okay. So now we somehow need to get 1. So you can see, if we try and make this square a black square, we've got a problem, because there's going to be that square's, in fact that square's green. So either these 2 are black or this square is black, but in either case this square here, I think at the top, has to be a black square. So this square needs to somehow connect here, because it can't get out this way, because that would require 3 in this square. So in order to connect this square to this square, it's never possible that this square is black, because that's going to be a dead end. So that square is green, and therefore both of those squares are black. We still need to put 2 more black squares around this area without creating a 2 by 2 block. So I think that forces that arrangement. Let's just check that's all looking good. I think it's looking okay. And we've sort of got this final conundrum here at the bottom, where again we've got to still put 2 more black squares around this square here, and we've got to connect this black area to this black area somehow. So what's going to be the best way of doing that? And it's quite surprising to me, at least, that this is uniquely determined at this point. I guess it's because this square can't be a black square, because if it is, that's a dead end. So we're forced to bring these 2 down, and therefore those 2 must be the other 2 black squares, if you like. Now this square is green, so actually it loops round at the bottom. And I think that's the answer to the puzzle. What a beautiful little puzzle. 10 by 10 puzzle that has that much sort of intricate logic, and all resolved around this pattern at the top, and the way that sort of cut bits of the grid off. I'm just lost in admiration for people who create these puzzles. I really am. Fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really do. Let me know in the comments if you did, and if you want to see more Tapa puzzles on the channel in the future, and we'll certainly take that into consideration. Probably back tomorrow with another puzzle from the World Sudoku Championship that we're delighted to have got permission to use. So see you then, for those interested in that sort of thing. Thanks for watching.